It's debate night in Nevada. Hear from the two candidates battling for your vote in their only televised debate. Senator Jacky Rosen.
We must protect women, and we must protect their doctors.
And challenger Sam Brown.
I know the horrors of war, but I also know, most importantly, the miracle of finding hope.
On the issues that matter most to you.
Mainly the economy.
It's just the price of goods, the price of gas.
High crime rate.
We just basically want a better life. That's what's driving me.
It's a critical seat in a battleground state. Tonight, you get to decide which candidate will earn your trust and your vote. Good evening from the nation's capital. I'm your host, Leland Vittert from News Nation. It's debate night, and the stakes are high not only for Nevada, but the country, as the balance of power in the Senate takes center stage. Moderating tonight's debate is 8 News Now anchor Denise Valdez, Politics Now host John Langeler, and reporter Joshua Peguero. The debate is airing around the state, here on 8 News Now, and the CBS affiliate KTVN in Reno, in Spanish on Univision in Las Vegas and Reno, and across the country on News Nation. Before we get to the questions, here are the rules. Senator Rosen and Mr. Brown, you will have 60 seconds to answer a question. For a follow-up question or rebuttal, you will have 30 seconds to respond. If a clarification is needed, you get 15 seconds. When time's up, we'll hear this bell. And each of you will have 30 seconds for a closing statement. Now live from the KLAS studios in Las Vegas, this is Debate Night in Nevada.
And thank you, Leland, and welcome to Debate Night right here in Las Vegas. Welcome to both of our candidates. We appreciate you being here. And welcome to everyone who is watching at home tonight. We have got a lot of important issues to cover. We do encourage everyone to share your thoughts on X using the hashtag #NVSenateDebate, where you'll also see the sources that we use in developing our questions tonight. And John Langeler has our first question for the candidates.
Denise, thank you. Candidates, let's start with the economy. It is consistently the #1 issue for voters in Nevada. The nation is battling high prices caused by inflation. Right now, the average Nevadan is paying nearly $1,200 a month more on groceries than 3 years ago. We'll start with Ms. Rosen. Can you give us one specific policy you would support moving forward to lower costs for Nevada consumers? You have 1 minute to respond.
Well, I want to first of all thank everyone for tuning in, and I want to thank Channel 8 for hosting this evening. And I know that families are being squeezed by higher costs, and we have to work on it. So what I would work on first, and what I have legislation to do, is affordable housing. I have a bill called the Home Act. It's to make sure that those corporate investors that come to Nevada, they continue to buy up our homes and they jack up the prices. We need to make sure they're not able to do that. I have a bill that will hold them accountable, that will fine them, that will put money back into affordable housing. The other things we've done is what I've done is bring $500 million to the Home Means Nevada program. It's going to help thousands of families get into affordable housing. And we've asked for lower interest rates because when it's lower to build and lower to buy, it's lower for everyone. My opponent, Sam Brown, actually calls for higher interest rates. He said it wouldn't be pretty or easy. In fact, it would be painful. So instead of making sure that Nevada families have the pride of home ownership, he wants to inflict pain on them.
Ms. Rosen, 15 seconds to clarify here. Sure. Beyond affordable housing, groceries, ways to lower costs for people who are going out and shopping for groceries.
I'm glad that you asked that. We've been working with the Federal Trade Commission because Kroger and Albertsons are the 2 main grocery stores, chains here in Nevada. And we know that they want to merge. And what happens when they merge? Well, they limit competition, they may close stores in some of our smaller communities that may lose jobs and only end up with 1 store. So we are working with the Federal Trade Commission to hold them accountable on price gouging and on against competition. This is what we're doing for them. We're also doing the same thing for big oil. They're ripping you off at the gas pump. Grocery stores, the grocery chains, the big oil, they're making record profits quarter after quarter.
Ms. Rosen, thank you. Mr. Brown, same question for you. Can you give us one specific policy you would support moving forward to lower costs for Nevada consumers? You have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, John. It's interesting to note that Senator Rosen struggled to answer the question about groceries. As a family that has been impacted by the higher grocery prices, let me tell you about a couple. But as we answer multiple questions tonight, I want the viewers at home to contemplate a question. Depending on who wins this election, who benefits the most? Is it us here in Nevada, or is it some special interest or maybe political party back in DC? Now let's get to talk about those issues of groceries and the higher prices. A lot of that can be impacted by our energy policy. This administration, backed by Senator Rosen, has chosen to prioritize energy policies that reward green energy projects. They've also led to an increase in taxes and regulations. All of those costs go into what we pay for at the grocery store. And look, there's locally owned grocery stores like Mariana's that do not gouge people, as Senator Rosen wants you to believe. They employ hundreds of local people here. Our prices are higher as a result of higher energy costs and regulations.
Time is up, but I would like to ask 15 seconds to clarify here. Once again, supporting a specific policy, what efforts would you take if you're elected to the Senate to try and lower costs for Nevada consumers? 15 seconds.
So again, everything moves through energy, our fuel prices. We need to prioritize cheaper, more efficient and reliable energy supplies. That's going to drive down the cost of everything. Not raising taxes like will happen at the end of 2025 if Senator Rosen stays in power along with Kamala Harris. And also reducing regulations. This administration has raised regulations that add to the cost of everything. Again, our grocery stores are not, our locally owned grocery stores are not gouging us. It's the policies of DC that is.
Can I have
15 seconds?
Can I have 15 seconds to respond?
Well, I would like to, yes, 15 seconds to respond. Yes,
well, what I'd like to tell you is that Nevada is a leader in the sustainable energy future with wind, water, solar, and geothermal. We have more solar jobs per capita than any other state in the nation, with thousands of jobs. We have critical minerals, the only active lithium mine in North America. And I can tell you there are billions of dollars that have come in investments to northern Nevada because of Nevada, UNR being named the lithium loop.
Thank you very much. And we will talk about clean energy and other efforts later on in the program here. We would like to stay on the economy here, though. Back in June, former President Trump first proposed his no taxes on tips idea right here in Las Vegas. And since then, Republicans and Democrats have supported the idea, but in different forms. But the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates it would cost the nation more than $450 billion in lost tax revenue. So we'll start with you, Mr. Brown. Who do you think should qualify for this no taxes on tips policy? You have 1 minute to respond.
Look, we have thousands and thousands of hardworking Nevadans right here that would benefit by this policy. And at the end of the day, some people may want to dismiss it. I'm glad that this is something that I think there's a bipartisan opportunity for us to work together on. And I'm glad that Senator Rosen has supported it as well. But at the end of the day, tax on tips is not the only thing that we need to eliminate. We also need to do the right thing for our seniors and eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits. You know, if we eliminate taxes on tips and Social Security benefits, that can be the difference between someone not being able to pay their rent, not be able to afford their groceries, or having that stable life. And so I think we need to eliminate both of those.
Mr. Brown, I beg your pardon. The question was specifically about the no taxes on tips policy, and specifically who should qualify for this policy. 15 seconds to answer that.
Look, again, if you're receiving tips, then you ought to be not have to pay taxes on those tips. This is something that clearly, as a result of the economy that we have, the higher prices that Senator Rosen has voted for, people are desperate, and this is a policy that will give them the ability to keep things together.
That's time, Mr. Brown. Thank you. Ms. Rosen, same question for you. Who do you think should qualify for this no taxes on tips policy? You have 1 minute to respond.
Well, I can tell you that I put myself through college as a waitress. In fact, I was a member of Culinary Union 226 when I was a young woman. I was grateful for the union and grateful for the job, and it's the first time our entire Las Vegas Strip actually is union. So I'm actually chair of the Senate Committee for Tourism. 25% of our hospitality workers are in hospitality in Nevada. It's a heavily tipped industry. So we need to make sure that our servers, our bartenders and waitresses have that ability for no tax on tips. We also have to address the sub-minimum wage wage, because in other places around the country, servers often make an average $3, $4 an hour. It's not a livable wage. Tips are variable. The other thing we have to do when we work on these bills is make sure we put in guardrails so that giant corporations, those greedy CEOs that are ripping you off, making record profit quarter after quarter, don't decide that their salary or bonus is a tip and they don't pay taxes. So I do believe we have to make an actual definition of who the servers are that, or bartenders, however we define that, get that benefit.
Ms. Rosen, thank you. I would like 15 seconds to clarify. Should the policy, if it goes through, only apply to hospitality workers? 15 seconds.
Well, I think that we have to look more broadly at who gets tips. And so we do know that servers, typically in restaurants, bartenders, waitresses, and the like, are probably the most heavily tipped in this country. So we can start there. We can also have a discussion and analysis and see if there are other industries that also work heavily in tips.
Ms. Rosen, thank you very much.
Yes.
Denise, to you.
To something you both already touched on
Yes.
earlier here tonight, the housing market and certainly the housing shortage that we have here in Nevada. Take a look at this graphic. It reflects a recent study by UNLV that Southern Nevada needs about 80,000 more affordable homes. In fact, about 90% of the land in Nevada is owned by the federal government. You both agree more of that land should be released so we can have construction, but you certainly have very different ideas when it comes to how that land can be used. So, Ms. Rosen, you're first here to answer with 1 minute. You've proposed legislation to prevent corporations from driving up prices, buying homes. You mentioned the Home Act a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Why should the federal government even be involved in who can buy a house?
Well, I don't think the federal government should be involved in who can buy houses, but we do have to protect the consumer from price gouging. Everyone knows the difference between someone making a profit and someone taking advantage of our community. So the Home Act is meant to determine that if you're in a housing shortage and these corporate investors come and buy up all the homes and they jack up the prices to unreasonable rates, that's hurting your community. We're going to fine them. We're going to put that money back into affordable housing, just like we did when we brought $500 million to the Home Means Nevada program to get people into affordable housing. We need to continue to work on these issues. We lowered interest rates in order to be sure it's cheaper to build. That makes it cheaper to buy. Those are things we have to do. And of course, as you stated, in Nevada, about 85% of our land is owned by the federal government. So we have to have lands bills in order to responsibly release federal land. I've done that with my Washoe County lands bill. We brought in all the stakeholders, the environmentalists, tribal communities, business leaders, our municipal elected leaders, and so many others to craft a bill, a consensus bill supported by the Reno-Sparks Chamber of Commerce to release over 15,000 acres for economic development with an emphasis on affordable housing.
Ms. Rosen, you mentioned greedy CEOs and these developers
right.
coming in. Who specifically do you think is price gouging Nevadans?
Well, I know that we have large corporate investors that are coming in and they are buying up the homes. They either aren't good landlords or they are taking advantage of us. So my bill allows Housing and Urban Development to take a look at each community.
Is there a specific one, though, you want to take a look at?
Well, I think that we have to look at some of these big Wall Street investors that are coming here. There are multiple investors. It's not the person who buys one or two homes. There are these large corporations that are coming and buying up all the inventory.
That's our time. Mr. Brown, you have 1 minute to respond here. Now, you've advocated just cut the red tape. Give these developers the incentives they need to build. Give us a specific regulation, though, that you'd like just to cut the red tape so they can provide this affordable housing.
Look, as someone who bought a home here 6 years ago, by the way, it's a humble home. It's 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. I was able to afford that home because my dollar went further 6 years ago when I bought it. Interest rates were lower, and no one wants to see interest rates go up, but we can see because of the spending of this administration and Senator Jacky Rosen being the deciding tie-breaking vote that has led to the increased cost, that interest rates had to go up to decrease inflation. What I would like to see is that we have more supply of housing. It's interesting that Senator Rosen would mention a desire to want to find greedy corporations. What if we find greedy politicians who make things more unaffordable for us? But at the end of the day, increasing supply of homes by getting rid of this really expensive auctioning process that goes to the lots go to the highest bidder would decrease the starting price for those new homes. And at the end of the day, when she talks about affordable housing, Senator Rosen, why did you only include 35 acres of affordable housing in your lands bill? That doesn't sound like much when you have 1 million acres at
Ms.
stake
Rosen,
there.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you'd like to respond to that.
Yes, if Sam would have actually read the bill, it was supported by the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce, built upon a coalition. There are actually thousands of acres set aside for conservation, set aside for our tribal communities, and over 15,000 acres set aside for us to develop churches, parks, schools with an emphasis on affordable housing. We worked with everyone to come up and craft a bill that worked for Washoe County.
Senator Rosen, however, out of a bill that
Mr. Brown,
impacted
that's
about
going to be the final word on housing. John has our next question right now with foreign policy.
And Denise, I would like to switch gears to foreign policy. Recently, we've seen fighting between Israel, Hezbollah, and Hamas increase. There was obviously some news just today about the leader of Hamas. But right now, a small number of American troops are going to be on the ground in Israel. Mr. Brown, I'd like to start with you. Is there a line the Israeli government could cross for you to stop supporting it in the Middle East? You have 1 minute to respond.
No, and let me be clear about this. Israel has a right to defend itself. If you go back just 4 years ago, people used to say that President Trump would lead to more wars, but we saw quite the opposite. In the Middle East, Israel was establishing peace between multiple neighboring nations there, and it was only in this administration that we saw the conflict explode. The major agitator here is Iran. And this administration, along with Senator Rosen, allowed for sanctions to be lifted. We sent billions of dollars to Iran, and Iran has funded their war through Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, and also now directly against Israel. Israel should be able to defend itself. The United States should not inject itself in any sort of decision-making process, but we need to stand with Israel and allow it to take care of its own business.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Ms. Rosen, I'd like to ask you the same question. Is there a line the Israeli government could cross in this war for you to stop supporting it in the Middle East? 1 minute to respond.
Well, I can tell you that I will always support Israel's right to defend itself against terror. Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism. We saw it with Hamas. We saw today that the leader of Hamas was eliminated. We know that Iran is a leading state sponsor, Hamas, Houthis, and the other rebels. We have to stop there. I tell you that I went to Israel 1 week after October 7th. I met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, I met with the War Cabinet, and I met with the hostages. Sadly, I've met with them too many times. But when I came back, I got busy. We had multiple extra batteries of Iron Dome. I asked the president, along with Senator Rounds, we asked the president to move them to northern Israel. They did. You see them in action today. I passed something in armed services called the Defend Act, which was integrated air and missile defense. You saw that again, protecting Israel today. On Passover this last year, I was proud to vote for the supplemental, which supported Israel against Iran, Hamas, and all the terrorists. It also supported Ukraine against Vladimir Putin.
Ms. Rosen, thank you. I would like to
Yes.
ask 15 seconds to just clarify if possible. Again, the question was if there was a line the Israeli government could cross that may get you to rethink or not support as much what they're doing. 15 seconds. Is it unconditional?
I think when it comes to terror, we always have to stand up to terrorists around the world and brutal dictators like we do with Xi in China, with Putin in Ukraine, and against Iran and its proxies in the Middle East. At the same time, Israel does have a responsibility to limit civilian casualties. It does have a responsibility to be sure that the humanitarian aid gets in. And it does have a responsibility with all of us to bring back those 101 hostages that have been there for over a year.
Ms. Rosen, thank you. Denise has more on this subject.
So just a couple of days ago, in fact, the U.S. government told Israel that it needs to provide more humanitarian aid in order to help Palestinians in Gaza. And if they don't do that in the next 30 days, it could lead to the suspension of U.S. military aid to Israel. So, Ms. Rosen, you're first with 1 minute to respond here. Do you support this position that the United States has taken on this?
I do believe that we have to get humanitarian aid into Gaza to the citizens there that need it. I do believe we have to continue to negotiate for the hostages. I will tell you that I was proud to co-lead and co-found the Abraham Accords Caucus. We're with our partners and allies in the region. We continue to work on a path forward, what will be the day after, and how will we support the civilians that have been used by the terrorists that are Hamas, the Houthis, and others. And so we need to continue to get that aid in. We will go back to work in the next few weeks, and I believe we'll be passing another supplemental aid package.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Rosen. Mr. Brown, we've got a minute to respond here. Do you support this new position that they're taking, this hard line that just happened this week?
Absolutely not. I do not support that position. It's amazing that Senator Rosen dodged answering that question explicitly. Look, as someone who has seen the horrors of war, I can tell you, no one should have to go through that. And that was the amazing thing that we had in the leadership of President Trump. That is what we will have again when President Trump is back in the White House, and I can be an ally to his in the Senate. But when we have these conflicts, again, this is something that should be an easy answer from any politician. We do not need to be drawing red lines on what Israel can or cannot do or how we will support Israel.
Can I just have one sentence,
I'm going to give you just 15 seconds
you.
here. I mean, do you support this ultimatum that the United States has given?
I do not support the ultimatum. I believe that we need to support Israel in its fight against terror. But what I do support is our responsibility to help those civilians who are suffering in Gaza, or to help limit civilian casualties. We can and we must do both: fight terror and support the innocent civilians.
All right, we appreciate that tonight. We move on to the next question with Joshua.
So we're gonna discuss an issue that you both brought up, energy. So if you take a look at this map, it shows Nevada has more than 130 pending renewable energy projects. They could blanket hundreds of square miles across the state. Mr. Brown, we're gonna start with you. You have 1 minute to answer. How would you help small counties in Nevada manage the growth of these projects?
Look, energy is a national issue, and we need to have the most available, efficient, and cheap energy possible. That is what Nevadans are demanding. Again, we go back to kind of the economy issue here. Most of us can't afford basic life at this point. And it's easy for Senator Rosen, as an elitist who lives in a gated community, who's known to have violated the Stock Act multiple times and has a $15 million trust, to sit back and say, oh, let's pursue these green energy policies. At the end of the day, what these local rural communities want is a chance to be able to develop in their own way. Again, this gets back to lands bills where we free up land for them, but we also need to have incentives like people being able to keep dollars in their pockets. We must extend the tax cuts that are set to expire that Senator Rosen won't commit to extending at the end of 2025. We've got to decrease regulations that add to the cost of our life. And these are issues that an elitist like Senator Rosen just doesn't understand like the rest of us.
A 15-second point of clarification, Mr. Brown. You say you want to help these counties develop these projects in their own way. How?
No, I'm talking about just develop in general. So a lot of these counties, the smaller communities there are landlocked. And we need to be able to, just like a federal lands bill here in Clark County, the one discussed in Reno, we need to free up more land around those smaller communities so that they can build out whatever sort of business projects, residential home projects that they see fit. Again, DC doesn't know any better than our local and state officials.
All right, Ms. Rosen, you also have 1 minute to answer this question. How would you help small counties in Nevada manage the growth of these projects?
I'm really glad you asked that, because Sam would have voted against all of this investment that we've made in Nevada that's bringing billions of dollars to our state. So our geography and geology, like I said before, lead us to be part of the sustainable energy future. Wind, water, solar, geothermal. Like I said, more solar jobs per capita than any other state in the nation. Companies are moving here to build component parts for solar panels. I can tell you that we've been designated the lithium loop through UNR, and we've had companies commit over billions of dollars of investment to increasing battery storage, research, and development. These are thousands of jobs across Nevada. And as I travel around the state, and I'm very proud to have so many mayors, Republican mayors, endorsing me, because my team and I, many of my team even raised in rural Nevada, we go around the state, we talk to them regularly about how they're going to be sure that they develop in a smart way, in a way that retains the personality of their community, but allows for new development. It's really important to rural Nevada that we retain the flavor of their communities. And so we brought millions of dollars to our smaller counties in order for them to start building their infrastructure out to accept some of these projects.
So a 15-second point of clarification.
Sure.
These counties have many jobs, but they don't have many employees. How are they going to manage that?
So what I want to tell you is this. We've made these historic investments, billions of dollars of Bright Line trains coming to Nevada, 30,000 jobs, billions of dollars of economic impact. The next thing we have to do is be sure that we build out our apprenticeships, whether they're labor, whether they're cyber, whether they're high-tech, advanced manufacturing. We have a shortage of nurses and medical professionals in Nevada. I've been working with community colleges, particularly in our rural communities.
Okay. Mr. Brown,
yes, we need to build out our workforce, is my point. This is what we have to invest in.
She said you would have voted down these bills.
Against the bipartisan infrastructure law, he would have voted against it.
30 seconds to respond to that.
Look, this is exactly the sort of thing that Nevadans are tired of, is this kind of insider politician talk. The reality is, Senator Rosen, when you hear words like sustainable energy, think higher cost of energy. When you hear billions of dollars of investments, think where are the homes for all these new workers? Who's going to pay for that? How are the local communities going to be able to afford that? Whenever you hear things like, I know these rural communities, but you can't even talk to the issues that they're talking to me about, this is concerning.
There's a reason the Republican mayors are endorsing me in rural Nevada.
That most of us live in, and there's a Nevada that Senator Rosen lives in. They're not the same.
Okay, we're going to move on to another environmental issue, something that is the lifeblood of Nevada, water. Water that comes from the Colorado River specifically, which is experiencing a historic drought. Hundreds of years ago, 7 western states agreed to share that water. Now, California uses 20 times more water than Nevada, mostly for agriculture. Ms. Rosen, we're going to start with you. You have 1 minute to answer. What is the one thing you would demand in a new agreement protecting the future growth of Nevada?
Well, I think that we have to be sure that those of us who live along the Colorado River, every single person, every single community, that we are doing everything we can to invest in water smart technology, water smart farming, resiliency, all of those things. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act, which my opponent would have voted against. And I can tell you, I visited a farm up in Winnemucca. They're a potato farm. Best t-shirt ever. It says people, potatoes, possibilities. They're using smart farming. They're increasing their yield. They're using less water. These are the kinds of things we have to do when we work along the Colorado River Compact, to make sure that everyone is doing their fair share and everyone is using and developing the best water smart technologies that we can.
Mr. Brown, the same question for you. 1 minute to answer. What is the one thing you would demand in a new agreement protecting the future growth of Nevada?
Let me be clear. I would demand that California become more responsible. They are not entitled to a permanent large share of this water when Nevada has led the way on conservation. Now look, I've written an article about this. There is probably very few families that enjoy the great outdoors as much as I do, well, until I got on this campaign, and I've got to be in the suit a lot more. But the reality is, we all love our environment. We love the great outdoors. Nevada needs to be celebrated for what we've done, and we cannot allow California to get away with the way that they allow water to be wasted. This is a precious resource that's important to us. California is not managing it. They're not stewarding the resource well.
All right, we're going to move on to John, who has a question on another important topic.
Yeah, Joshua, thank you very much. Let's turn to immigration if we can here. Since the Biden administration started, nearly 11 million migrants have crossed into the U.S. Former President Donald Trump is promising mass deportations. Mr. Brown, we'll start with you. 1 minute to respond. Do you think that's a good idea?
Look, I'll tell you what's a good idea is securing the border on day one. Look, when President Trump was in office, we saw record illegal crossings. We need that again. This administration, on day one, President Biden went in and started dismantling the secure border and the policies around that we have. Now, here's one of the things that an insider like Senator Rosen won't tell anyone, is that she sits on the Homeland Security Committee. She's supposed to have our back. And in her 6 years in office, she's been to the border one time. Where is she to defend us, as over 10 million people have come across our border. We're talking about drugs, we're talking about terrorist, human trafficking. This is a crisis, and we must confront the cartel. This is a very serious issue that President Trump has a track record on. I will support making sure that criminals who are here illegally, like the 13,000 murderers that we just found, convicted murderers that we just found out are here. By the way, Senator Rosen, why have you not told us about this? Congress has known. They need to be deported immediately.
Mr. Brown, thank you. And Ms. Rosen, I'll get to you in a moment, but I would like to clarify with you for 15 seconds, Mr. Brown. Again, the question was about former President Trump's promising mass deportations. Do you support that? And if so, how would that happen?
Look, I mean, that's a very big logistical undertaking. What I can tell you is we start with securing the border, and then we deport those criminals, like the 13,000 people who are convicted of homicide. We have convicted sexual assault people here as well, criminals here as well. We can start there, but this is a huge undertaking, but it starts with securing that border.
Mr. Brown, thank you very much. Ms. Rosen, the question for you. You support increasing funding and security on the border. Illegal crossings are at a reduced pace after President Biden brought back immigration policies, somewhat similar to the Trump administration. 1 minute to respond here. Would you encourage the next president to keep some of those policies in place? Again, 1 minute.
The first thing I would do is pass the Border Protection Act. My opponent, Sam Brown, said he was against that bill before he could have even read it because the bill text wasn't out, because President Trump said he wanted to use it as a political football. I speak with our Border Patrol regularly. I've been to the border multiple times, and our Border Protection Act, negotiated by a Democrat, Independent, and Republican, gave the Border Patrol what they needed. In fact, it's endorsed by the Border Patrol Union. Gave them the tools, techniques, resources, and training at our ports of entry. So when those trucks and cars go through, they go through these X-ray bays. They can use artificial intelligence to stop the flow of fentanyl, to stop human trafficking. In fact, when that bill didn't pass, we do have a fentanyl crisis. I had 2 bills in that package, the Stop Fentanyl and End Fentanyl bills. I pulled those out. They are now signed into law because our Border Patrol agents need to take care of that. I will tell you that since I've been in the Senate, I've been calling for comprehensive immigration reform, one that secures our border, one that stops the deadly flow of crime and fentanyl, has a humane and orderly asylum process, and pathways to citizenship for our Dreamers and TPS holders.
Thank you very much. I would like 15 seconds to clarify. Again, the question is about if you would encourage the next president, whoever that might be, to keep some of these tougher policies in place. Would you support Remain in Mexico, things along those lines? 15 seconds.
I think we have to do what we did with the Border Protection Act. We can take it as a whole, and we can see what we need to do to be sure that we're securing our border. But we have to do more than that. We have to secure our border and then have pathways to citizenship. I want to address the deportation. How would that happen, mass deportations? Who would get caught in that? How many innocent people would get rounded up? And so we have to be thoughtful about what we do and not use it as a political football.
Thank you very much. 30 seconds to respond, Mr. Brown.
You know, this is again what you would expect out of an elitist from D.C. whose own neighborhood has more security than our border, with gate and security guards. Our border deserves that too. Our communities deserve that. This bill would allow for 8 million people to come, guaranteed, to come across as asylum seekers. It would pay for their legal counsel. It would pay to fly people into our country illegally. And we want to talk about the Border Patrol Union. They endorsed President Trump. And President Trump has endorsed me. So if someone wants to see someone who will be serious on the border, it's President Trump, it's Sam Brown,
thank you
for this issue.
To respond, Ms. Rosen, 15 seconds.
Thank you. I want to tell you that my opponent is so stubborn and so extreme. He often uses the words not negotiable and no middle ground to discuss what he's doing. I want to tell you I'm one of the most bipartisan, effective, and independent senators serving today. Over 90% of the bills that I introduce are bipartisan. I work with everyone in order to craft solutions, pragmatic problem-solver solutions. That's what I'll do in this case.
We have to move on. Thank you very much,
Denise.
Thank you.
All right, it is time for us to take a short break. We're going to be back in a few minutes with questions about reproductive rights, and also this from our chief investigator, George Knapp.
What's out there? It's a mystery that could take a government to solve. Up next, I question our candidates on the secrets our government keeps.
And welcome back. Now we want to go to a topic that was made famous right here in Southern Nevada. Our chief investigator, George Knapp, who many of you may know as the UFO reporter, has our question.
What's out there? There have been recent revelations of several government agencies looking into UAPs, more commonly known as UFOs. This is video of one of the most famous ones, the Tic Tac UFO. We don't know what that is, but it appears to be a matter of national security. The Pentagon says all of these instances can be easily explained. New UAP hearings are slated for both the House and the Senate. Do you support more UFO transparency, and should Congress create something independent of the Department of Defense to conduct the research?
So, Ms. Rosen, you'll have 1 minute here. Should Congress do its own independent investigation into UFOs?
Well, this is a topic that we have talked about. I sit on the Armed Services Committee, and we know that, as your video showed, Area 51 is here in Nevada, in the center of Nevada, and it's a top secret military site. I do think it's important that we do our independent investigation. Of course, in the Senate, we are responsible for oversight. We have committees in both houses. I do think it would be important to see what we're doing there and if there is any merit to this.
Mr. Brown, you have 1 moment here to respond. Should Congress do its own independent investigation into UFOs?
Look, I think I'm just as curious as anyone. I'd love to know what's going on. I never saw any sort of technology like that when I was in the service. I'm not sure I fully trust Congress, to be able to figure it out. Maybe Elon Musk can. But when you're talking about secrets, here's the sort of secrets I think Nevadans deserve to know about. And that is why Senator Rosen has violated the Stock Act multiple times. As someone who has a $15 million trust, whose net worth went up 61%, while most of us are suffering with the higher prices and less take-home pay, we're worried about paying rent, putting food on our table, some people even having to leave the dignity of retirement and go back to work. We want to know, what is Senator Rosen trading on, and why does she have hundreds of thousands of dollars of big pharma stock while she continues to profit and we suffer?
Ms. Rosen, let me give you 30 seconds here to respond to that.
Because it had nothing to do with UFOs, but I do want to tell you this. I'm the granddaughter of immigrants on my father's side. My grandparents, my grandmother was a cook, my grandfather a barber, my father a salesman. And on my mother's side, my grandmother a single mother, a union worker, a factory worker, third shift her whole life. I put myself through college as a waitress. I always worked hard. This has been debunked. All of this has been debunked. I introduced and sponsored bills to prevent members of Congress to not trade stocks and not own stocks when they're in Congress. And so this has been debunked. I always work for hardworking families. I came from that kind of a family, and I'm going to continue to work in middle-class tax.
Ms. Rosen, thank you. Now we're going to move on to a different part of the program. These are individual questions for each of our candidates. There is no rebuttal. It's just with a specific candidate. And we'll begin with Joshua. All
right, we're going to start with you, Ms. Rosen. Yes. This question is about, you had 30 seconds to respond, but you're already sponsoring legislation on ethics reform for the Supreme Court. Would you take it a step further by adding justices to the court or imposing term limits?
Well, I can tell you that our Supreme Court needs to be held to the same code of ethics that every other judge and elected official is held to in this country. I don't agree with increasing the size of the Supreme Court. Some people have talked about creating term limits for Supreme Court so that there is a rotating group of Supreme Court justices. I do think we have to look at how the Supreme Court rules, and we absolutely 100% need to hold them accountable and transparent in their transactions for cases that come before the Supreme Court.
So 50-second point of clarification.
Yes.
Would you add more justices?
I would not add more justices.
All right, we're going to move on to John, who has a question for Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Joshua. Let's talk about the proposed but never completed Yucca Mountain nuclear waste dump. It's about 60 miles outside of Las Vegas. Back in 2022, you said Yucca Mountain is, I'm quoting here, an incredible loss of revenue for our state. Back in May, you said, quoting again, it's abundantly clear it's dead. So, Mr. Brown, the question for you, 30 seconds to respond. Can you explain why you changed your position?
Look, I didn't change my position. All I said was that there's opportunities for us that we should explore on what can drive revenue for this state, and I made no determination on Yucca at that time. But having done the research, I can tell you, Yucca Mountain is dead. I would not support a reopening of Yucca Mountain just to store the fuel from other states. But what is clear is we do need to take seriously our energy future in green energy, like a proposal from this administration to cover millions of acres of Nevada with solar panels is probably not the right solution either.
All right, Mr. Brown, thank you very much. Denise, over to you.
So that's the end of our individual questions. Now we're going to move back to questions for both of our candidates. Let's turn now to the topic of women's reproductive rights. There have been legal protections for abortion in Nevada for more than 3 decades now. In fact, right now the issue is on the ballot to put it into the state constitution. Mr. Brown, we'll start with you on this question tonight with 1 minute. What's your position on a national ban on abortion?
Look, I've been clear, and let me just state this up front. I would not vote for any national ban. However, this is a very, very personal issue for so many people, for so many women and families. And I come at this as someone who is informed by my wife's experience. Unfortunately, she had an unexpected pregnancy in a traumatic situation that ended with an abortion. And it was very traumatic for her. And what she told me as she was recovering from that was that she wishes that she had more support. I think that this partisan issue needs to be, we need to refocus on supporting women. I also stand by Nevada's law that allows for abortion up to 24 weeks. I stand by and allow that we should allow for women to have exceptions for rape, incest, and threat to the life of a mother. Nevadans have made our law clear 34 years ago. I stand by that law, and I would not vote for a national abortion ban.
Thank you for sharing that personal story as well. Ms. Rosen, with 1 minute here, are there any limits on abortion that you would support?
Well, first of all, I support restoring Roe v. Wade, and I support question 6, which my opponent says he will not support. He says he's a no. He says his positions are not negotiable for him. He has a decade-long record of saying that he's against any exceptions on abortion, even in the case of rape or incest. Not negotiable. Women are dying. 1/3 of American women don't have access to care, and you can see in cities after a city in this country, women are being turned away from emergency rooms or dying in hospitals. This is fundamentally about freedom. And I will tell you that complications late in pregnancy, they are tragic, they are horrific, and they are rare. And I will also tell you that a doctor's office and a hospital room or an emergency room is too small a place for a woman, her family, and her doctor to have a politician like Sam Brown, Mitch McConnell, or anyone else sitting in there telling them what they can and can't do, watching them potentially die like they did in Georgia.
I would not do
too crowded. And if you don't believe that he would support a nationwide abortion ban, then I've got some oceanfront property to sell you on the Las Vegas Strip.
Let's give you 15 seconds to go on the record here to respond to what she's saying.
You know, thank you. It's sad that I have to go on the record again and again because of the deceptions of Senator Rosen.
This is his decade-long record.
Ms. Rosen, this is his time.
This is a serious issue. This should not be a hyper-partisan issue. We are talking about the lives of women. I have been clear that I would not support a national abortion ban. I don't appreciate, and I don't think the voters of Nevada appreciate when people lead with deception on this issue. We need to lead with empathy and care.
Thank you both. A
May I have one
question
sentence
here.
on that, please?
No, we're moving on. Kamala Harris has proposed getting rid of the filibuster in order to make Roe v. Wade federal law. So, Mr. Brown, you're first here, 30 seconds to reply to this follow-up. Is there any scenario where you would support getting rid of the filibuster?
Absolutely not. When Republicans had control of the Senate, I was against getting rid of the filibuster. When Democrats have control of the Senate, I also would be opposed to getting rid of the filibuster. The filibuster is there for the minority. And at this point in time, as in our entire history, it is important that we protect the minority voice in this country. The Senate should not be a place where we just ram legislation through. And regardless of which party has control, I would not eliminate the filibuster.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Rosen, with 30 seconds, would you be in favor of eliminating the filibuster to pass a national standard for abortion?
I will tell you this. Take Sam Brown and his record, and that women can't trust him when he changes his position. It's his third run for public office.
But the question, though, is
and
about
the
a
question is
filibuster.
this. The filibuster. We have supported carve-outs for the filibuster to restore Roe v. Wade and restore voting rights. But I do support reforms that help make us less stuck in the Senate. There are ways that we can reform the filibuster that make it work for everyone so that no one on an extreme side, on either side, can use it as a weapon, and we can continue to pass bills.
Thank you. John has our next question.
Denise, thank you. Right now, there is an ongoing controversy over transgender athletes in college sports. Some University of Nevada, Reno women's volleyball players are refusing to play against San Jose State because of a transgender member on its team. And this raises questions over federal Title IX protections for gender equality in college sports. Ms. Rosen, I'll start with you. You have 1 minute to respond. What rights, if any, should transgender athletes have while competing in women's sports?
I can tell you that all student athletes deserve to have a fair competition and a level playing field. So I support parents, coaches, and the governing leagues. They are the governing bodies. They are the experts. I believe that they are the right ones to make these decisions, not politicians. So, as in every other sporting issue, we allow the governing bodies to make those decisions. I think we should do that now.
All right, we'll move on. Mr. Brown, same question for you again. 1 minute to answer. What rights, if any, should transgender athletes have while competing in women's collegiate sports?
Nevada, let me be clear. What we just heard was a politician say that she does not have enough knowledge on this issue to know whether or not biological males should be allowed to play in women's sports. I will not support biological males playing in women's sports. And I was proud to stand with the University of Nevada at Reno's women's volleyball team on Tuesday evening as they came out in a stand in a courageous act to defend their ability to have a fair and safe and also private locker rooms for their own sake. It's sad to me when these young women are having to take a courageous stand and our politicians can't even say that they have enough expertise to be able to weigh in on this issue. This is shameful.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Ms. Rosen, you were sort of addressed there. Would you have 30 seconds to respond? Do you care to respond to that?
Well, we do have governing bodies. We have coaches, parents, and leagues, and they make all the decisions for sporting events. So I think we should leave the decisions to the experts who make them, not to politicians. I fully support that all athletes should have a fair competition and a level playing field, and allow the governing bodies that we have now, like the NC2A and others, depending on where you're competing, to make those rules and set those parameters.
We finally found something that should
Ms.
be
Rosen,
locally
thank you very much.
controlled.
Mr. Brown,
That's amazing.
Mr. Brown, please. Joshua.
We're going to focus on a topic that's dear to both of you and to our country as well, veterans. VA facilities in Southern Nevada have been investigated for the deaths of 2 people. Mr. Brown, 1 minute. You are a veteran. Do you feel you received adequate care when you were treated at a VA hospital?
Yes, let me tell you that as a veteran, I do get my care from the VA hospital. In fact, I was just at the Reno VA hospital this morning. I also realized that the VA system, just like any federal system, doesn't cover everything it needs to. It doesn't have perfect care. It's one of the reasons I started my business when I moved here to Nevada, to provide emergency and urgent care access to pharmaceuticals for veterans when the VA hospitals were not able to. So the VA is a very important part of our healthcare system. It's one that I personally utilize. My wife, as a veteran, utilizes it, but it does have room to improve and get better. And largely what I see is incredible providers, nurses, doctors, and so on, but the bureaucracy and the processes create some of these missed spots where people end up in a really bad situation.
You also have 1 minute, Ms. Rosen, to respond. You sit on the Armed Services Committee. Even though you are not a veteran, would you feel comfortable having the VA as your primary care hospital?
I can tell you that we were proud to support and pass the PACT Act to expand health care for our veterans exposed to toxic burn pits. I can tell you that I asked the president to put in his budget a new VA hospital in Reno so that our veterans did have the best care possible. He said yes, they're currently searching for that 50-acre site. They're going to be announcing it in the spring. We've expanded telehealth. We are making permanent my bill, the Veterans Assistance Helpline, to make it permanent. We are doing everything we can to expand our medical workforce. I can tell you we're thousands of nurses short in Nevada. I've been investing in building out training. My Train More Nurses Act passed unanimously in the Senate, so we can have better medical professionals here to provide that care. So what we need to do is increase our medical workforce. We have a new hospital here in southern Nevada. We're going to get a new one in northern Nevada. Our veterans deserve the very best care. My father was a veteran. All of my uncles, my grandfather. I come from a veteran family, and I'm going to do everything I can to support veterans.
So a 15-second point of
Yes.
clarification. Do you feel comfortable with the care the VA is currently providing?
I know that the men and women who work at the VA hospitals and work for the VA, and you know the VA is the largest employer of veterans, only above the post office is actually the second largest employer of veterans, but the VA hospital, largest employer of veterans in our nation. And I know that they do everything they can to serve their fellow veterans, the men and women who served, who come for care. My dad got his care at the VA for his whole life. And so he got excellent care there. We need to continue to support it.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Denise.
We've had a lively discussion so far. It's time now for our closing statements. We're going to give you each 1 minute for your closing tonight, and we'll begin with Mr. Brown.
Look, Nevada, we have a choice to make. This is a choice about our future. This is a choice about our families. This is a choice about whether or not we continue to have the leaders, the insiders like Senator Rosen, continuing to vote and to cast their vision for us. You heard tonight that she wants to hit these talking points, these DC, buzzwords, make accusations, and it relies on so much deception and money from the coastal elites that support her while we are hurting. It's time for a champion to go to DC who understands our issues, for someone to be there who knows what it's like to be a small business owner, to be there as a veteran, to go there to work to make sure that we lower our taxes, that we decrease regulations, we make life more affordable again, we secure our border. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your trust. We cannot survive another 6 years like this.
Ms. Rosen, you have 1 minute tonight for your closing statement.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. You know, it's been the honor of my life to serve as your United States Senator, and I've hoped that I've earned your support and trust to continue serving in this role. I'm proud to be one of the most bipartisan, effective, and independent senators, with 90% of the bills I introduce being bipartisan. And everyone knows that I'm not afraid to stand up when it comes to somebody hurting Nevada. Just check out how I kept the postal mail in Reno and fought against the post office. But I can tell you this, I've lived in Nevada nearly 50 years. I worked here, I raised my family here. I took care of my parents and in-laws as they aged here. I buried my parents here. They're buried at Boulder City Veterans Cemetery. I love our great state, and that's why I'm running for re-election, to continue to serve all of Nevada in a pragmatic, problem-solving, bipartisan way. I'm Jacky Rosen, and I'm humbly asking for your vote.
Candidates, thank you very much. So thank you for both taking part in this, and thank you at home for watching this lively debate here for the race for Nevada Senate. For Denise Valdez and Joshua Peguero, I'm John Langeler.
Before we sign off tonight, we do want to remind everyone that early voting in Nevada is right around the corner. It starts on Saturday. You can vote at any polling location. Same-day registration is also available. You can put those ballots in the mail or drop them off at any of those polling locations. And as a reminder, our candidates know this very well. Election Day coming up November 5th. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.